Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Camper Report. I'm your host, Benjamin Camperman, and today we have Keltz Chronicles. You can find him at Keltz Chronicles on YouTube. I think it's out at Keltz Chronicle on Twitter. I first found this guy he would go on Grant Cohn's show, and I think we found each other on the Cohn phone. But he commented on my post a few days ago and about Marcus Jones, and we're apparently both lovers of this guy, this cornerback coming out into this draft, 2022 NFL draft, Houston cornerback Marcus Jones. So we kind of talked a little bit like last night on that guy, and we said, hey, let's do a show. So how are you doing today, Keltz Chronicles? And thank you for coming on. I mean, I'm looking forward to speaking to a person who has looked at the same prospects as me and kind of like has broken down the same people. So how are you doing today? And thanks for coming on.
Man, I am well. I am blessed. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, man. How are you as well? And hey, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on the show to the fullest, man.
Yeah, I'm good. And I mean, it's crazy because the combine's happening. There's a lot of news, Jimmy Garoppolo news. So there's tons to talk about in 49ers world. It's never ending. And really, like, the offseason hasn't, for me, I don't think started. I took a few weeks off, but I don't think it's really fully set in yet because we're already a few weeks away from free agency. It's flown by really how the the Super Bowl has been a few weeks ago. So it's crazy to think that we really haven't gotten an offseason yet. And it's really fun. So.
Absolutely, man.
So the first one that we've got, and the 49ers got a new quarter. Obviously, they lost Rich Scangarello, offensive coordinator now of the University of Kentucky. They got a guy who I thought at first was a Hall of Famer. Well, I thought he was Bob Griese, but no, it's Brian Griese. And the 49ers hire this guy, Brian Griese. A quick background on him. The Denver Broncos, he was a backup, I think, to John Elway. And then he was obviously he was getting coached by Mike Shanahan. So why do you think the 49ers picked Brian Griese as their quarterback's coach out of everyone else that they could have picked? There were some candidates out there. So why do you think they picked him? This is an interesting, no one saw this coming. Interesting pick here.
Man, hey, you know what? I think it's the perfect pick. A lot of people like to say, obviously I'm a fan of the 49ers, been a passionate fan my whole life. And I think you are as well. We haven't talked too much, but so sometimes people could say, hey, it's okay to be critical of the team. But my response to that is there's not a lot to be critical of the 49ers. I mean, we are stacked, as with our coaches, our players, our legacy, our history. There's not a lot to really pick apart. I mean, even the guys that we're trying to go after right now are kind of like depth pieces. Like, our team is so just to stay on point with not Bob Griese, but Brian Griese. That's funny. I'm pretty sure Brian Griese is the son of Bob Griese, which is also another really good point. A lot of people will argue and say, hey, he's never been a coach before.
You're right.
Hey, how come we didn't go get this guy that's a big name?
John Beck or Steve Young, whatever.
How come we didn't go do this? How come we didn't go do that? It always feels like there's some kind of doubt with the unknown. And my response to that is the only judge about what's going to happen is time and opportunity. But I look at it like it's perfect. I look at the familiarity, if I said that right.
Familiarity. Yep.
Yeah. I look at that because once upon a time, Bob Griese, he sat behind John Elway. I believe he was drafted by the Denver Broncos.
Yep.
And also another point I made was he was teammates with Anthony Lynn. So those guys know each other. Those are two new guys coming into a system with the 49ers who played under Mike Shanahan, which is Kyle Shanahan's father. You know what I'm saying? So there are so many ties. There's so much, these guys know each other. And on top of it, these guys have won a Super Bowl together. Anthony Lynn and Brian Griese have won a Super Bowl together with Mike Shanahan.
Okay. Yeah.
So we are not, okay, we're bringing in the unknown. That's going to make some people fearful. But I like to choose faith over fear. That's why it's the 49er faithful. I mean, we're not the faithful for no reason. And the last time I checked, faithful means to, be loyal and steadfast. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A lot of people like to use doubt to stir the pot, to keep the conversation going, maybe for clicks or whatnot. But long story short, I feel like it is the absolute perfect hire. You bring in a guy, regardless whether he was the backup or not, he was a part of a Super Bowl winning team, played under the coach, played with Mike Shanahan. He played with Anthony Lynn. So these are two new guys coming in and they all know each other. It's like it's going to be like a reunion. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Of Super Bowl winners. Like when you start bringing in men that have been on teams that have won Super Bowl, they're probably going to know how to lead men, more than just the X's of O's. I feel like it's more important right now for us to have leaders of men, to get people to believe, to get people to get the best out of them, and I feel like I haven't done a lot of research on Brian Griese. I do remember when he played. I feel like it's perfect when you bring in guys like Anthony Lynn, Brian Griese, you know what I'm saying? Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch once upon a time played under Mike Shanahan as well.
Right.
And John Lynch is a Hall of Famer, Super Bowl winner with the Buccaneers. So you're starting to bring in a lot of guys who have been a part of Super Bowl winning teams. I feel like it's all coming together for the Trey Lance season. And I feel like it's perfect and it's going to be beautiful, man.
Yeah, that's actually a good point you make there. And the thing is it's Super Bowl teams are special. And when you get a Super Bowl team, you have to duplicate, like teams try to duplicate it. So I think obviously, like you said, what Kyle Shanahan is trying to do here, responding to your point, is what Kyle Shanahan is trying to do here is he's trying to get guys that he knows who know what it's like to win a Super Bowl, basically. And that's why I think they missed in 2019 is they didn't have enough people who knew what it was like to have a Super Bowl, or at least enough coaches. They had people who had won a Super Bowl before, been to a Super Bowl before, but they didn't have enough coaches who knew what it was like to win a Super Bowl. So it's good. And I think, honestly, this clearing out of coaches that we're seeing here is I actually kind of like some of the moves, because offensive line coach, he left. Well, guess what? The offensive line coach couldn't develop an offensive lineman to save his life. That's why we've had so horrible success the last few years in offensive linemen. So I am actually liking these coaching changes. But also to look on the opposite side of the spectrum, if we were to say this was a bad hiring, and let's say it was, what if the 49ers the last few times really haven't, Rich Gangarello, Shane Day, like those aren't really good QB coaches. So I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't a bad hiring. But now that you bring it up, you kind of steered me towards the side that this is a good hiring, because they're trying to bring in guys who have actually knows what it's like to win a Super Bowl and what it goes into every day, what grind goes into every day to just push to win a Super Bowl. So good point you make. And yes, I totally agree. So yeah, real quick here, we have Randon big fan of yours, Randon Mcmahon, national champion, Super Bowl champion, backup to Elway and Pro Bowler, played in a lot of big games and can help him with the mental presser of the upcoming season. I think it was meant pressure. But yeah, that's a good point you make as well. I mean, and a lot of people try to make the point that Trey, he wasn't a mobile quarterback. Well, it kind of, when you go around the NFL as a quarterback's coach, and I think you can agree with this as well, when you go around the NFL as a quarterback's coach, you see so many mobile quarterbacks, you sort of kind of pick up their game. You kind of know what their game is. So I think if you're good enough, you can really adapt to coaching anybody's game, really. So
absolutely. I feel the same way. maybe it's better. I like to look at a lot of things outside the box and a lot of reverse psychology type ways. Because a lot of times when we think something's 100%, it could even get elevated, even a point past that. If you just really dive deep onto what is
Yeah.
and what isn't, and I kind of look at maybe it's a better thing that Trey Lance has a guy who was more of a pocket passer. Maybe you get a guy who was a runner in the NFL that starts being your coach, and maybe they're going to have the tendency to try to get you to run more. Maybe, I just love the addition. I feel like we're just bringing in, like I've said before, the right guys, man, who knows what it takes to win a Super Bowl. I feel like sometimes there's a lot of stock put on well, he's not a runner. He doesn't know X's and O's. He's never done it before. I feel like the best coaches are the guys who could get the most out of the guys,
Yeah.
regardless of, of course you need to know the X's and O's. And of course, I bet Brian Griese, does, he's been around it his entire life. He has lived under a man, Bob Griese, who went undefeated, in the only team to ever go undefeated, the
Mm,
1972 Dolphins, so he's been around these kind of things all his life, just like Kyle Shanahan, just like, John Lynch. These guys are all connected with
right.
Bob Griese's, Bill Walsh's, Mike Shanahan's, and I won't, I want to say it again. I think it's special when you get Anthony Lynn and Brian Griese together,
Right.
who have actually won a Super Bowl playing together.
Yeah.
I think that's special, and people could say those kind of things don't matter, but
Right.
that energy and that feeling of chemistry, it does matter. It truly does. So, I'm juiced up, man. I think we got a amazing season
Yeah.
coming up, not just because I'm a fan. I mean, it's clear to see. And if you got doubt about certain things, then, hopefully you can let that
Yeah. Yeah.
faith lead the way.
Well, yeah, and I mean, Kyle Shanahan. I mean, we've seen with previous coaches when there's a big haul out, just quickly going to all the coaches being lost. When there's a big haul out of coaches, usually coaches kind of a downgrade year. I think the year that Doug Peterson really started with the Eagles, since I followed the Eagles a little bit as well. When they lost a lot of coaches that year, he kind of struggled. But I think the 49ers are hiring coaches back that are that they
Yeah,
know and that are Super Bowl winners. I don't think it's the same situation what happened with the Eagles, but we'll see. Only really time can tell. So,
absolutely.
real quick here, Randon McMahon, they all have QB coaches for mechanics in the season. He is going down to Beck. Yeah, that's what I'm
Yep.
saying. Like, it's not like you really need a guy that will be with you. Like, you're going down to him in the offseason anyways. So, yeah, that's a good point you make there.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Yeah.
want a guy that's been there and done that, man, that has it's your extra pair of eyes. You want a guy that's like, hey, I've personally been in this situation before, yada, yada, yada. Just, yeah, man, it's perfect in my book.
Yeah. So next one we have here, moving on, um, Combine. Obviously, we all like I mentioned in the beginning of the show, Marcus Jones, but he hasn't ran yet. That's tomorrow, Sunday. But I've been watching quite a bit of the Combine, and I know, I mean, there. Quick recap: quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, offensive line. I think defensive line, special teams, whatever. They've all run already. Who so far have you liked the most in the NFL Combine that you think that the 49ers, like, who you think the 49ers should draft? Not the top guy like Chris Olave. He's not going to the 49ers, but who do you think the 49ers should draft that has really stood out to you in the Combine this year so far?
I'm going to be a little biased and a little going with the popular pick, but it kind of isn't the popular pick for me because sometimes I'm the kind of guy that likes to stay away from the popular pick. Um,
Yeah.
for example, my number one favorite player in history was Jerry Rice, and I purposely liked John Taylor even more because it's like, I don't know, there's something about me loves the underdog. So it's
Right.
like, of course I love Jerry Rice, but because of John Taylor being number 2, it's like I liked him even more. So I had John Taylor and Jerry Rice much more closer on purpose than anybody else probably would. But it's like something about the underdog that just I love. And with that being said, when I first started hearing the words of Christian Watson, I was kind of like, yeah, right. That's just because they played together, yada, yada, yada. Oh, here, this is a popular pick, so I'm like, hey, I want to stay away from it. Let me go find somebody else. Let me go do. And then I was like, you know what? I started watching film on him, start checking him out. I was like, man, bro, this guy's special.
And
I
he's
don't know.
fast too.
I start
Big
see,
receiver.
man,
Yeah.
it's quick for me. I see somebody, and it's like I felt the same way about Trey Lance. When I seen Trey Lance, I think I first seen him in November. I started of 2020,
Okay.
and I started texting the radio station. This is before I went on
Mm.
YouTube. I didn't even realize 49er people were on YouTube the way we're on YouTube. I had zero idea. Like I was, a father and a husband, and I work, and I would just go on the radio station and text them my opinions, and then so it opened up a whole new door for me. When I found out about Trey Lance, I was like, I need to tell everybody. I I thought the 49ers were going
Yeah.
to specifically hear me like, go get Trey Lance, and um, so long story short, I felt the same way when I seen Christian Watson. I was like, my God, this dude, I seen him taking some of those jet sweeps.
Yeah.
I just started seeing a tall addition like a Debo. I'm just like, dude, like this dude, there's the better Jalen Hurd that Kyle Shanahan wanted. I'm like, that's exactly the type of guy that I feel like Shanahan was looking for in a Jalen Hurd. It didn't pan out. Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
here is your opportunity. And once again, just like Anthony Lynn and Brian Griese, chemistry cannot be overlooked, and once upon a time that started the San Francisco 49ers dynasty was Dwight Clark and Joe Montana. And one of the biggest reasons why they were so special was because of off the field, they were best friends. Once they
Right.
really became best friends, that's when it started to blow up. And I'm getting the chills just even saying it because it's true. It's true that those kind of things truly matter when it comes to winning Super Bowls. When it comes to those magical seasons or those dynasties that get reignited, it comes down to those kind of things. People being friends of each other, positive energy, just having a chip on your shoulder is one of the biggest things that Trey Lance has. And I'm sure Christian Watson does as well, coming from a smaller school, having to fight for what he has. You feel me? So
Yeah.
that's the biggest guy. I try to stay away from it and I can't. And there's a good reason why, Christian Watson, hopefully we can do whatever it takes to go get him along with Marcus Jones. Cause I feel like those are the two dudes that are just on my eyes and on my heart for sure.
Yeah. I would love the 49ers to get him, but there is one problem after his combine. And I love him. But after his combine, this combine was probably one of the deepest fastest wide receiver groups. They broke a record. There was,
Beautiful.
I think, a dozen people under the 4.4. So they broke a record, and it's a deep receiver class. Like when you look into it more, you look 13 guys down the list, and you're like, you could go like round 3, and you're like, okay, well, this guy's also really good. So, I think I love Christian Watson as well, but right now, the way he caught the ball with confidence at the combine. He ran a really fast 40 time. The way he's looking right now, he probably went from a end of second round pick to a mid second to early second round pick. Same with Sky Moore from Western Michigan. So,
Yeah.
I would love the 49ers to get him, but another guy that really stood out to me, receiver, and I think people have been kind of noticing him, Wan'Dale Robinson. This guy ran, I think, a 4.38, something like that. had a good amount of confidence catching the ball. Went to Kentucky, and he's the perfect slot receiver. 5'8". It's what the 49ers need. 5'8". He can stretch the field. Go back, look at his film at Kentucky. Can stretch the field. Deep target that really Trey Lance could use. We don't really have one of those. And I mean, outside the numbers kind of guy, not over the middle a ton, but really can stretch the field. And he had a great 40 time, and he really stood out to me at the combine. And there's a lot of guys, but he's also a guy that right now I think is around a 4th round pick. So like the 49ers could get a safety, a corner, and then with one of their late 3rd round picks, get him or something like that. So he's kind of a low cost kind of guy that you could get at the end of the 3rd round, but also could be a huge reward and could really turn out to be a solid starter for you. I'm all for the 49ers for getting a receiver, but for me, don't spend too much capital. You can get one in the later rounds. I think the 49ers are thinking that as well. And I do expect them to get a receiver, but Wan'Dale Robinson, look him up, guys. He is very, very intriguing prospect that kind of stood out to me when I was watching the combine. So,
yeah, I'm definitely gonna check him out. I think I have a little bit, but I'm gonna look at him a little bit more. Wan'Dale Robinson. So I for sure. What was another thing? I was thinking of something else as well as you were talking. And I lost it.
Hey, you're good. I mean, I have 22 missed tackles, which was tied for 2nd in Power 5. So in last year. So I mean, he's an interesting prospect, very interesting. And I think if the 49ers do, let's say they go offensive line route, Kellen Dash, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's really tall, kind of lean, 6'7", 301 pounds. So he kind of tall and lean. Doesn't have the powerful build, but he's part of an Arizona State offense that fits the mission, that fits Kyle Shanahan's play style and like what they like to do. So that's another guy. You have another offensive lineman from Kentucky who played right tackle. His name is Darion Canard. He was also, but they say Darion Canard, they say he should move to guard because he's not as fast, not as good of a pass protector. So those are a few
funny.
guys to throw out there.
I did 2 mock drafts last night. The first 2 mock drafts I've done so far this year, which is kind of crazy because back in the day when I was a normal fan and just didn't have a YouTube and stuff, I would be doing mock drafts like crazy. I would, just be searching it like crazy. But I got Kellen, how you say it, Dash?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know about Dash.
Yeah, he was on my very first mock draft I did. What did I have him in the 4th round?
4th, okay.
131. But, it shows he's a number 73 type prospect. So, I mean, yeah, man, I was looking at him. And one thing I like to almost stay away from, I like to stay away from taller guys. Maybe it's McGlinchey that got me a little PTSD on the taller linemen. But at the same time, hey, you know what? I almost wouldn't be surprised if McGlinchey turns it around. And I can't judge one guy off another guy just because, he hasn't had the best few first years. But I did actually look at tape of him, man. So it's funny that's one of the guys you mentioned because, when I was checking him out, he looked good to me, man. So Kellen Dash for sure is another guy.
Well, and that's a scheme fit, but I had the same flags while watching his film. This guy kind of reminds me a little bit of Mike McGlinchey, but you go the opposite route. Another guy, Nicholas Petit Freer. Now, this guy probably is going, we would have to pick him with probably trade up a little bit in the 2nd round. And he's also really good as well. Left tackle, 6'5", more, I think 315. So more bigger built, but I don't know. I think Darion Canard, there is some weaknesses with him. He's not the greatest pass protector, more of a run blocker. So those are some guys that I think we could probably get Dash in the 3rd round, and maybe Darion Canard is right now around end of 2nd. So all of those guys are around where we would be picking. So
yeah. Hey, you know what? I think, someone told me a while back, how good, Aaron Banks and Jalen Moore are as far as pass protecting. So I had a little theory in my head, like, you know what? maybe they were never going to be used this year. You know what I'm saying? So I'll kind of
Right.
look at guys like Jalen Moore and Aaron Banks kind of in the same exact category as Trey Lance. Like people could
Yeah.
people today are so quick to want things right now. You know, I want it right now. If it's one
Yeah.
year has went by, oh, they're trash, oh, they're garbage, oh, this, oh, that. It's like, hold on a minute, you know. Um,
Yeah.
let's give the guy a chance, you know, even a Kinlaw, like, you know, oh, he's not gonna, it's like, man, hey, take a breath. It's okay. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But it's like I want to see 3-4 years go by. You know, I mean, if it's just one thing after another thing after another of negativity, of
Yeah.
course, that guy might not have a chance. But I feel like, you know, Aaron Banks and Jalen Moore, you know what I'm saying? I feel like they're going to surprise some people along with Kinlaw. There's a lot of guys we did not have last year playing consistently for us that I think is going to be, man, I think we're going to surprise some people with the pieces we already have, you know?
Yeah. I think an offensive line, those are just a few people. I'm not really sure what we'll do there. I think receivers more of the sure bet that I think we will probably try to go after in the draft. But Calvin Austin, that's an interesting one as well from Memphis. I've watched a little bit of him, but I know Marcus Jones went up against Calvin Austin and had the cornerback that we were talking about had one of his best games. I think 2 picks in that Memphis game against Memphis. So, yeah, I've heard of him as well. Yeah. So definitely a lot to delve into, but the draft is quite ways away. So we still have a lot of time to get into all these prospects. The combine is just the start, I believe. So, yeah.
Absolutely. That just means free agency is coming right around the corner.
Yeah, that's gonna be exciting. I'm excited for that. So, moving on to another one. Um, this is a little bit taking a step back from the draft and everything else. Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously, I feel like another story comes out every day. It's every day you see something about Jimmy Garoppolo and a different this and this and whatever. But Jimmy Garoppolo, I wanted to take a little bit of a different spin on things. Like the the consensus question is, where is he going? Do you think the 49ers will cut him? This is a question that I think we have to ask ourselves. Do you think the 49ers front office can take an ego hit? Which basically meaning, do you think they can really admit that they were not that this wasn't their franchise guy by cutting or trading Jimmy Garoppolo for a low pick? Do you think they can take that? Do you think their egos can take that? Or is that going to be too much for them to take? And is that why they haven't cut him already?
Oh man, it's interesting. I cannot remember there ever being a player that is just so that can just leave you confused.
I know.
Good Jimmy, bad Jimmy, injured Jimmy. He has split second moments where he looks like Montana versus the LA Rams, you know, to come back and win
Yeah.
for us. Or he'll have those spur of the moment Saint games. And it's just, or he'll come in and win 5 games in a row, you know, when he first came with us. And, you know, I'm sure that was probably one of the moments where all 49er fans were on the same page. When he had those first 5 games, all of us probably had a little bit of hope. We were all on the same page. But it's come to a point in time. Now, I was talking earlier about the 3-4 year type thing. We have seen the 3-4 years
Mm.
from Jimmy Garoppolo, and enough is enough. You know, from me,
4 years, yeah.
we haven't. I don't know your stance when it comes to Jimmy Garoppolo. You probably don't know mine. But just as much as Trey Lance was a motivation for me to make a YouTube channel, I had the same motivation
Yeah.
against Jimmy Garoppolo. Like I had enough. Um,
Yeah.
you
This
know,
year I hated him.
and
Yeah.
I was very, very quick. I had enough back in the summer when he went experimenting in the summertime, and then he comes back on the field and he just looked like, I think it was 3 or 4 games before he tore his ACL, and
Okay.
he looked shaky. He looked deer in the headlights. It didn't look the same. And even when he was really on top of his game, I mean, he's always been limited in a box. It is what it is. He's really, really good in the box that he plays in, his quick release, his short, 5 to 15 yard passes. He's really, really good at it. But to win Super Bowls, you're going to have to do more than that. And it's obviously that's part of the reason why we've come up short, the past couple of years. I broke it down, coulda, woulda, shoulda, what if type scenarios where there was a possibility we could have went back to back to back. I know that's wishful thinking and it's super optimistic, but at the same time, to get to your question, I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good.
I get
Keep going.
fired
yeah,
up,
yeah.
man.
Keep going. Yeah. I
It's
love
hard.
it. Yeah.
I feel like Shanahan, I feel like the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were still basically rookies when we got Jimmy Garoppolo. I feel like they were still in kind of desperation mode on, hey, let's get it now. Let's try to do something now. That might not have been either one of those guys' first picks, but it was a good pick for what we had in the moment. I feel like the 49ers were already on the verge of turning the corner, regardless of Garoppolo. I feel like we could have got someone like Garoppolo or a little bit better and had much better results, but we just so happened to be peaking. Like, just because we lost all those games right before Garoppolo got there, we were already showing signs that we were right there, and it's like, it was a perfect storm for Garoppolo, the timing he came to us. And, it was nice for a while. We went on a Super Bowl run. And one thing that frustrates me is I think the quarterback position is the only position where they have the win-loss record next to their name. You don't see the win-loss record next to Debo's name. You don't see the win-loss record next to the defense's name. But the defense in the run game has just as much to do with Jimmy Garoppolo's win-loss then, and people could go back and forth, well, this or that. It's like, well, Jimmy took us to a Super Bowl, and, my response would be like, the running game and the defense took us to a Super Bowl. Yeah. But besides getting on a division hype, because I definitely it's like, hey, the 49ers got there. It wasn't Jimmy. It wasn't the run game, yes. But if I were to be, if I were to really get specific in my discernment, I would say, hey, Jimmy might have been the third best reason why. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't the number one reason, and that's for sure. So I kind of look at it from John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. It's like, hey, we went faster than we wanted to. We kind of got stuck with what we have. And maybe not exactly like that, but hey, we got as much out of them as I kind of think Kyle Shanahan will probably take a step back and be like, hey, I turned a mediocre quarterback into a straight up winner. I turned him into a winner. He almost, we almost won 2 Super Bowls with him. That's reflection of my greatness, yada, yada, yada. So there's probably some ego, some pride. Of course, you want to have some of those things in the NFL. I like to just be, call it different words. You know what I'm saying? But man, it's hard. The emotion of me says, hey, even months ago, I was like, hey, cut him. Like, hey, let's just be done. I like to be on solid foundation, and not just be wishy-washy and lukewarm with things. Yeah. But sometimes that's good. I guess sometimes that can be, good for others. Me personally, I don't like it. And then, I got done watching the Joe Montana series, and I was like, Lord, hey, at least we're not having to deal with this kind of stuff for years upon years, because it seemed like the Joe Montana and Steve Young thing lasted for 3-4 years, before, and then it still was kind of heartbreaking the way that ended. I look back on it, I didn't know too much about it until I watched the Joe Montana series and was like, oh man, like he should have been there. He should have been there to finish his career out, but Jimmy Garoppolo is not no Joe Montana.
No, not even close.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, I'm not trying to compare the two, but it's like, I feel like it was very reminiscent because um, before Steve Young took over, he would insert Steve Young in, for a play or
Right.
two, kind of like how this year was. But it's like it feels like we're going to be a lot quicker to get the drama out the door.
Right.
And man, I still don't know if I answered your question.
No, yeah. That was really good. Yeah.
All right.
But I mean, there isn't really a right answer, I feel like, to this question. I think the thing is I don't think it's an ego hit if you've got what you wanted out of a quarterback. You traded a
Yeah.
second round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. You've gotten a championship game out of him. You've gotten a Super Bowl game out of him, out of a second round pick. So, I mean, moving on for him, I don't think, maybe it would be an ego hit, but the thing is like, you've got to move on. And the thing is like, he's done enough for your team where 4 years, second round pick, you've gotten enough out of him. I know you wanted him to be that franchise guy, but for me, I mean, are they willing to admit that they are wrong? They were wrong. I mean, in a way, I think you kind of have to. When you that would be living in the past. And I think the 49ers, I think every good organization is willing to admit that they're wrong and moves on, and they're better for it. And so I think they're finally coming to the realization that they're wrong. And they've been pushing a narrative all season. I still think they should have benched him week 8 and let Trey start. That might have been a great thing as well. But enough of that. I mean, I think the 49ers, I think they're going to be able to get a pick out of him. Maybe not much, but yeah, I think every good organization moves on. And, that's what makes them great organizations. You see with the Patriots, they do not get, like, they will not take, like, they'll cut players just if they don't have a good attitude or whatever. You've seen it. So the 49ers are an organization that has kind of molded themselves after the Patriots, kind of in some aspects of it. And so if you really want to mold yourself more after what the Patriots do, then you'd probably move on from him. So,
Yeah, I don't think the 49ers, I don't think they look at it like in their building. I don't think they're ever like, hey, we were wrong. I think they're just kind of
no.
like, hey, we got what we got.
Yeah.
It was a good ride. We got Trey Lance. We're about to ball out. In their eyes, they're like, hey, we did the right thing, and the right thing. And
Yeah.
then because I was impatient, I was like, hey, start Trey Lance right now.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, Trey Lance is about to be the rookie of the year. We're going to go 13-4. We're going to win a Super Bowl. I was going crazy. And then, the more the season rode on, the more it was just clear to see that this is the direction they're headed in. I kind of looked at it like, hey, this could be a really good case scenario for Trey Lance to not play in the season. He might try to go do so much and be moving way too quick, trying to do so much those are times when injuries do happen, so, the more I looked at it, the more I was like, hey, this is probably perfect. Let's just, let Jimmy have his final shot at it. See what happens. Trey, people say you're not going to learn unless you're playing the game, but
Right.
I don't believe in that, because you got to look at it when you're a rookie in the NFL. These people are still humans. There's a lot of things that happen that we don't see. These guys are going to have to find a new place to live, get comfortable in their environment. Like, I could only imagine if I just moved 3,000 miles away, 1,000 miles away, and I had to go get my whole life resituated. That takes a lot out of you. Just even that aspect, despite, besides doing commercials with Jerry Rice or Sleep Number, you know what I'm saying? You're 21 years old and you just come across some money and you're in a new town and around all these new faces and people. So I thought it was perfect for him to sit. I thought I didn't want him to sit, but the more I thought about it, I was like, it's probably a perfect situation. It is what it is. And Jimmy, at least he was able to give it another shot. It didn't pan out. He proved once again exactly who he is, and it's basically you're going to be confused. It's always you're either going to you're either going to barely win, barely lose, or kind of and more times than not we would win because we have a really, really good team.
Yeah.
You know,
So, yeah, and I mean, Brandon brings up a good point here. Are they wrong? Only 2 teams got farther than the Niners this season and still have Trey, who would be the first overall pick this season. Speaking of which, do you know Trey Lance is actually younger than Matt Corral and Spencer Ritter? I think this year. So it's kind of funny to see. Yeah, I mean, the 49ers are just lucky that he didn't declare for the draft later, because this would be a completely different team without Trey Lance. With Trey Lance going this year, you'd probably see Trey Lance on what? I'm trying to think, if he were to go this year, maybe the Texans or something, Seahawks, whatever. You might see this Trey Lance on the Seahawks or the Saints or whatever. So it would be interesting, or the Jaguars or something like that. So it's crazy to think of all the things that, like, if he wouldn't have declared, we'd be still stuck with Jimmy probably to this. So it's crazy or with another quarterback. So it's really crazy to think.
Yeah, we might be bringing Brian Hoyer back, huh?
That's crazy.
Oh,
I don't
man,
know who would want him back.
I'm so hey, we are blessed as fans. Sometimes that's why I'm like, hey, man, it's like, oh man, let's throw our hands up that Brian Griese might not be the man. It's like, man, we are stacked. We have almost all pro players at every position. I'm over here talking about 27 of 27 teams that have won Super Bowls the past 27 years had a Pro Bowl cornerback. And I'm, just even saying that makes me feel like kind of like, it just shows that's the only position that we don't have a Pro Bowler. And, people could say that Jimmy Ward is a Pro Bowl caliber player. Emmanuel Mosley, he could potentially get there.
Maybe Ambry Thomas as well.
Ambry Thomas, I believe all these guys can still get better. Or just put together better seasons is what I'll say. But
definitely Ambry, yeah.
The facts do show that none of those guys have ever done it. Whether it was getting a bad, just not being recognized by the league. Like, regardless, when I look at it, from a clear lens, it's kind of like, I don't think we've had a guy that's had more than 5 interceptions. God, who was it?
Wait, say that again.
I don't think we've had a guy that's had more than 5 interceptions in a while. I think it was Parrish.
I thought Richard Sherman had it like a few years ago in 2019. I thought he had like 5.
He might have, but
hold on. I'm looking it up.
So there's Parrish Cox, I believe. He might have had 5, but I know for sure 6 interceptions was Carlos Rogers and Deshaun Goldston. And, that's, 2000, I believe 2013.
Yeah.
Something like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, there's not a lot of stock on interceptions, because one thing I will say is like, hey, we led the league in tackles for loss. We had 98 tackles for loss.
Yeah.
We were first in tackles for loss, but toward the back end on interceptions. So some could say,
right,
hey, I don't know, there's so many layers to the game that it's just kind of, at some point in time, I think that has to be a factor, is to upgrade the secondary for sure, because solid's going to get you wins. Solid's going to get you to the playoffs, but you need to be great to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
It's interesting. He only had 3 interceptions that year, and the last time he's had over 5 has been 2013. I mean, there was years 3, before that 0, before that 2, 4, 2, 4, 8, 8. He was really only really good at interceptions in like 2012, 2013.
Hey, how many did he have? How many interceptions did he have the year the Seahawks won the Super Bowl?
It was 8.
So that's the most he's had, huh?
Yeah, it was tied.
There you go. Hey, it's like, man, hey, bro, if you really go look at all the Super Bowl winning teams, I mean, there's guys like Steve Atwater, Troy Polamalu, who was it? John Lynch. Who are the other guys? Deion Sanders. Yeah. You go look at every single one of the past 27 teams, bro, and they have had. There's a lot of Hall of Famers, people. I think the narrative about, hey, trenches are what win. hey, if you rush the passer, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. Yes, it is going to do those things. But when it comes to NFC championships, Super Bowl games, who are you going to be
Yeah.
facing? You're going to face Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. You're going to face Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
You're going to face maybe a Tom Brady and a Godwin again. We don't know if they're coming back, but when you are deep into the playoffs, you're going to face the number one quarterbacks and the number one receivers. And if you can rush the pass, and a lot of the times what happens is the pass rush at some point in time, it's going to run out of gas.
Right.
Some point in time.
That's
Even,
why.
and if you run out of gas just one game, you're done.
Yeah.
In that one game, when you run out of gas, if you have some all-pro ball hawks back there, you might be able to overcome it and see those just coming close to Super Bowl victories to be in Super Bowl victories.
And now that you talk about that, that brings up a great point. The Bengals, for example, every team. That's why you see a lot of teams that don't have great secondaries fall apart in the fourth quarter. Eli Apple was a weak link for the Bengals. Richard Sherman was a weak link for the Bengals. You see a lot of those teams. Rams won it because they had Jalen Ramsey, like one of the best corners in the league. Right.
And they had Cooper Kupp. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's they had one of the best wide receivers and one of the best cornerbacks. But of course you need an Aaron Donald. Of course you need, Matthew Stafford isn't the best in the world, but he is better than mediocre. So it's like, of course you need the quarterback. Of course you need the defensive line. But my thing is we have Nick Bosa. Okay, let's say we do bring back Arden Key. And we do have Eric Armstead, and we also have, let's say we bring back DJ Jones, and then Omenahi or Samson Ebukam. If you have 6 to 7 guys that are really, really good, and some of them potential Hall of Fame players, and then you go look in the secondary, and they're just all solid, it's kind of like, hey, you got to balance this thing out. You know what I'm saying? Hey, the defensive line is taken care of. It's time to get this set. We need, it's proven that it matters. The last time the 49ers won a Super Bowl, we had Deion Sanders, Eric Davis, Merton Hanks, and Tim McDonald. Every single one of those guys have had, I think, multiple Pro Bowl appearances. Multiple. All 4 of them.
Yeah. It's a good point.
And then look what happens. The next year, we don't have Deion. The Cowboys have Deion. They win a Super Bowl. Bang.
Yeah.
It's like, it gets overlooked. People see other people say something like, hey, defensive end is the most important, period. Well, the last time
it is, but
it's like, yes, I do agree, but that doesn't mean that behind us doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, we've kind of covered a little bit of what the 49ers need. Do you still want to cover about what position will the 49ers, instead of the draft, what position will the 49ers try to strengthen in the free agency?
Sure.
Do you want to? Okay. Well, I'm going to start off real quick. I mean, I think it would be smart to do offensive linemen. Now, I think you need to get an offensive line coach. They haven't gotten one yet. I think you need to get one before you consider getting one in free agency. But, I mean, there's guys, obviously not Teron Armstead, but there's obviously Ryan Jensen comes up on our radars. There's quite a few guys that we could get in free agency. I think offensive line for the 49ers, it's the hardest to develop. So maybe
hold
you
on
go
one second, my man.
You're good. Since it's the hardest to develop, maybe you go after offensive line, but there's some good safeties. And, a lot of people want to get safeties in the draft, and we'll see tomorrow, what happens with the combine, but there's some good safeties out there as well. Let me name a few. I mean, you got Tyrann Mathieu, Devin McCourty. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's retiring. You've got Quandre Diggs, Rodney McLeod, which was a pretty solid safety for the Eagles. Watched him a little bit. Keanu Neal for Dallas. That's an interesting one. Anthony Harris for Philadelphia. So there's a good amount of people there. Let me see. Wait, I'm not seeing. I'm trying to see for the Bengals safety. He's not on this list. I don't know if he's taken already? I don't know. Because the Bengals safety, what was his name? Can't remember his name. Do you remember the Bengals safety that was really good?
Bengals, Bengals.
It was.
I do not.
Yeah, well, it was. I think he might have gotten franchise tag. Anyways, so I think the 49ers might try. There's a lot of good say. What do you think about that? Those are just a few things out there.
You know what? I think like because at first I started kind of looking at it like,
Yeah.
let's just. I feel like they either have to make a major upgrade or just
Right.
keep who you got. I feel like it's kind of like if you can't get
Yeah.
a Tyrann Mathieu to come in for Tart or something like that, then I don't even know if that's the same position. But the point is I'm making is if you can't get a major upgrade, then I don't think there's really a point. Like if you're gonna take out a Jaquaski Tart and put in a Jabril Peppers, Jabril Peppers or something, I don't think that's enough of an upgrade to even make a move. I would, if you're not going to go make a splash on a Tyrann Mathieu, a Devin McCourty, a Quandre Diggs, someone like that, or, a Stephen Gilmore, Joe Hayden.
Right.
That's one guy I really, really wanted for, I just really like Joe Hayden in the draft. I can't remember what year he was drafted, but I do know that in that particular draft, I did want him. And there's a couple of guys that kind of stick in my mind throughout the past decade where it's like, oh man, I wish we would have got that guy. But Trent Williams was one of those guys. I remember in our draft, we didn't get him. And then when we did get him from Washington, I was like, man, that's just super funny how that wound up happening. That's one guy I really wanted us to get. It took 8-9 years, but we wind up getting him. So I have a weird feeling about Joe Hayden.
Okay.
Who knows? Pittsburgh is among one of those teams that are looking at Jimmy Garoppolo. I know everybody says, if you're going to trade a player, it's got to be for a draft pick. But none of us really know. None of us really know. If you want to make something happen, you might go unconventional, and it could be something that we might not think. I think there's going to be. I don't think it's just going to turn into nothing when it comes to Garoppolo. I think that it's going to be some crazy move that none of us seen coming. So, hey, man, if we could get a Joe Hayden, because last year I think there was some talk about maybe not Stephen Gilmore. Who was it? It was Garoppolo and
J.C. Jackson?
Samuel.
Oh, Curtis Samuel?
Yeah, I think, or not Curtis Samuel. It was the New England Patriots cornerback. There was talks about trading Jimmy last year for the new.
I think it's J.C. Jackson.
I forget his name.
Was it what's his name? Stephon Gilmore?
It wasn't Gilmore. It wasn't. I believe it was Asante Samuel.
Oh yeah, from Florida State.
I believe so. Yeah, I don't know. My mind's I'm a little off point, but
because there was a guy drafted last year, Asante Samuel.
Yeah. But the point I'm making is, hey man, if we could get a Joe Hayden, a lot of people like Kyle Fuller. Hey, I'm one of those guys. I wouldn't be mad at a Chris Harris Jr., even though a lot of people say, hey, he's washed, yada yada yada. But the last time I went and watched him down in San Diego, I went and watched some tape. He didn't look that washed up to me. He looked like he was still running with the slot guys. I was like, kind of, it's funny how someone can say something, and then you go watch some tape, and then you're like, hold on a minute, just because the guy's been in the league for 7-8 years, I don't know how many years he's been in the league, that doesn't automatically mean he's Josh Norman. That doesn't automatically mean that he's just done, because I wouldn't be mad at Patrick Peterson is another guy who I really used to like. Now he might be a little too slow,
Yeah.
But hey, there's multiple ways to go through the draft, through free agency. I hope we bring back Jason Verrett. That's just me. I think sometimes after you face a few catastrophic injuries, I feel like you can go on a run where you're good for 3 or 4 years. None of us really know, but the one guy I really, really liked that I haven't heard people talk too much about was Joe Hayden. And at first I stayed away from Tyrann Mathieu, but the more I started looking at the history of the NFL and Super Bowl winners, I was like, hey, do what you got to do to go get that man, 49ers. Like, if you could bring in a guy like that,
and
like
he
I
might
know,
be cheap,
hey, go get it done, because one thing that I know that man brings is fearlessness. He brings straight up heart, and he has a nose for the ball. Like some players in the secondary just have a natural knack for interceptions and fumbles. It's like their own natural instincts knows how to turn around for the ball. I seen it a lot of times last year where the 49ers, a lot of the guys in the secondary have a hard time getting their head turned around. I don't know if it's them personally, the coaching, what it is. I went to the Houston Texans and 49er game.
Okay.
And that's one thing I was looking for, was because, you watch it from TV and sometimes you're not going to see exactly what you want to see all the time. I was looking at every single cornerback. I was trying to keep my eyes, and I'd noticed it multiple times. I was screaming out multiple times, get your head turned around. Like, they would be in position, but would not get their head turned around. One major factor that I seen from Marcus Jones was that man gets his head turned around. Almost every time he got his head turned around, interception, head turned around. He just, hey, go watch
Marcus Jones. Yes.
Go watch K1 Williams.
Oh, okay.
And K1 Williams is good. All right. Our guys are good. They're very solid. But you go watch a lot. Go watch the details on if they're getting their heads turned around. Any way you can find that information or find those videos, go really just pay attention to if they're getting their heads turned around, because Marcus Jones does that beautifully. And that's the difference from a PI versus an interception.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, Marcus Jones is so good at navigating the ball. He's athletic. He's good at navigating the ball. I mean, I did a film session on him a few days ago, or just like a few plays. And I mean, there was one play where like he turned around. It was in the red zone. He turns around, jumps up, and just like his vertical, like it was like a one-handed catch in the end zone interception. I mean, this man was electric. So loved him as well. Yeah.
Hey, that's two of the biggest things that stood out to me was, like we mentioned, a guy like Tyrann Mathieu. One thing that those kind of guys have, they got a certain energy where they got bounce, where you could just see, some guys who like take it all the way, take it 80 yards, and they get into the end zone. And sometimes they look gassed. And then you see other guys who take it the whole distance and they could just keep going and going and going. And I think it really matters. Like even on plays where they're making big hits or making good plays, and then they hop up off the ground quick and they leap up in the air. Like there's some guys who just have that bounce to where the point I'm trying to make is I think those are the special factors that turn into just greatness, that turn into those interceptions, that turn into those game-changing plays that you're not going to just depend on a Nick Bosa to make.
Right.
So, but I did see that from Marcus Jones, and also I believe it was Brian Cook, where I seen that bounce. I seen that energy. I seen that fearlessness. I seen that, kind of just game-changing type of mentalities. You could just see it when someone has it, for sure.
Yeah. And I looked up the safety that I was thinking of from the Bengals, Jesse Bates. I think he might have gotten franchise tag, but he was really good. He's going to be he was going to be expensive this year. The 49ers never could have gotten him, but Jesse Bates was very good for the Bengals this year. I'm not sure why he's not on the list anymore of free agents, but they might have franchise tag. I'm not sure. But yes, that is a good point you make about, I think the 49ers will try to go after offensive line. I mean, the Alex Mack thing, we'll see. That's a huge thing. Like that I mean, if he retires, I think I don't think this is anything like Joe Staley. I think he does come back for one more year. We signed him to a 3-year contract. Like, for goodness sakes, we signed him to I think it was a 3-year contract saying, "Are you going to play?" And he's like, "Yeah." So why would we do that? I don't know. So I think he plays this year, but it's really just like solidifying, the O line, like Laken Tomlinson. Like, do they bring him back? And that's why I think that Kentucky guy that Darion Canard, they say he probably should move inside because he's not much of a good pass protector. That's a guy that you could draft, 3rd round or whatever, and you move him inside to replace Laken Tomlinson. I'm not sure. That's just a thought there. But free agency, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. I wonder if the 49ers usually are never very aggressive. I think this is the year where you are aggressive in free agency because, this free agency is pretty splashy. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we definitely, we're in a beautiful position to, most of the things that we have to do is, really add depth, because we could kind of freak out and look at the 5 guys we have on the offensive line and completely forget that we have an Aaron Banks, a Jalen Moore. Even when McKivitz steps in, he does, they're serviceable. Tom Compton comes in, is serviceable. Not the best, but they're good for who they are. We also, not to mention, we're also going to have a McGlinchey, a Aaron Banks, a Jalen Moore. Those are 3 guys right there who could be very good players that we didn't have last year, or that we didn't use last year too much of. So I think, as long as we do add some depth to the offensive line, wide receiver, and cornerback, man, I think we're in.
Yeah, for a big run.
Yeah, hey, why not? It's like I would love to see someone try to argue the reason on why not. You know what I'm saying?
The only thing I could think of. Oh, sorry for it. Go ahead.
No, you're good, bro. Go ahead.
The only thing I could think of is maybe the staff turnover. Maybe that's them gelling together. But like we said before, I think they know what they're doing with that. And again, D'Amico Ryans, for example, he was promoted from within, but he was a new head coach or a new coach, and he did probably one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. So I'm not really worried about that.
Hey, and then on top of the turnover, look at the chemistry that, like I said, with the Broncos, that those guys already have with each other. And then on top of it, you bring in Anthony Lynn, who has been a head coach, who has been in the league his entire life. And on top of it, he's been a head coach, in the same state. So, I think a lot, there might be a lot of talk about this is Brian Griese's first year, Anthony Lynn's first year. These guys are probably more familiar with each other, Shanahan and these 2 guys coming in, than the guys that we already had here.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Hey,
Rich Gangarello went to the Eagles, for example. Like, he went like back and forth. So like, he's obviously not very familiar.
Hey, we don't know exactly where Kyle Shanahan was when he was 18 or 20 years old, but it's possible that he was around these guys when they were winning Super Bowls with his dad, Mike Shanahan. It's possible that he already had met them when he was still a teenager. So, hey, I think it's beautiful. I think we are in for a special ride. But like your point about D'Amico Ryans, there was a few people who were like, hey, this guy, oh man, we made the wrong pick, yada, yada, yada. And look, he turned out to be
great.
A potential head coach at the end of the year. It's like that's exactly my point on giving up on people too quick who want it right now. You want to give up on a Javon Kinlaw. You want to give up on an Aaron Banks or Jalen Moore. Imagine if people would have given up on Stephen Curry when he had those ankle injuries early in his career. Once upon a time, people were like, hey, we should probably trade him. His ankles ain't never going to hold up. And then he turns into one of the greatest to ever do it. I'm not saying Kinlaw is going to be that, but you got to give it a chance for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, D'Amico Ryans also, like you were saying, a leader of men. You can see it. So it's an exciting for sure. Yeah. Anyways, I think we have I mean, we've been here for an hour. This has been so fun. Rich, Keltz. Guys, go subscribe to Keltz Chronicles on
Yee.
YouTube. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks for coming on. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Absolutely. Same with you, man. Thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it. And it was quick. We shot a few messages to each other and we made it happen fast. So I kind of appreciate that, man. I like to, so I like to shoot the shot. There's some times where I go live and I have no idea I'm even going to do it. And I like to just kind of spur of the moment, do those kind of things, man. So I like it, man. I like it. I just seen you a couple of weeks ago on Grant Cohn's Cohn phone.
Yeah.
And I instantly was drawn to you. I like your energy. I like the way you see the game. If I'm even seeing it right, so I appreciate you, man. I love to, we're all kind of like a family when you look at the 49ers. If you're doing your 49er YouTube thing, you're obviously passionate about your team. And if you're, doing it for the passion of your team, more than for yourself, it's pretty obvious to see when someone is, doing it for something bigger than themselves, for sure. So I appreciate you, man, for sure.
Yeah, thanks for that. And this has been a lot of fun. Knowledgeable 49ers fan, Keltz here. Guys, thank you everyone for watching. This has been a great show. And don't forget, subscribe to him. And man, this was fun. So everyone, we'll see you guys again later. Peace out, and have a fun rest of the combine, fun rest of the offseason. It's going to be quite exciting coming up to free agency. So we'll see you guys again later.
Yee.
Peace out.